What's going on, guys? Thanks for joining us back again for FM Central's weekly Football Manager show. It's the 18th of the 12th, not long till Christmas, and we have our first guest on this show. We have Statistical Approach from YouTube. Fantastic to get him on. He's going to be doing a little interview section, and we're just going to get down to some questions which we'll all answer. We've got Ryan and Ben with us as we have every week, so say hello, everyone.
Oh, hi,
Hello.
how's it going?
The excitement is unbearable. Right, we're going to pass it over to Ryan. He's going to use his very posh accent to do the interview section of the show. So thank you, Statistical Approach, for coming on.
No
Right.
worries.
Yeah, can I call you Luke or should we call you Statistical Approach? Get a bit
No,
of plug-in out there for you.
definitely more appropriate.
Statistical Approach, I'll get you some plug-in. So, first off, basic question. I think I know the answer to this anyway. What club do you support?
Okay, people ask me this all the time on the channel. I think in the early days I was quite guarded about it, but most people know now I'm a big Newcastle United fan.
Hey!
Probably not the greatest club, I guess, to support in terms of success in my lifetime. Probably my brightest memories would be the Keegan era, maybe a little bit under Robson, but generally more heartache than success, that's for sure.
Can I just ask, sorry Ryan, I just need to ask, you don't sound like you're from Newcastle.
Just
Well,
to me.
I live in Northumberland, so most people outside of the northeast hearing this, I laugh at what I'm about to say, but people would refer to me as quite posh. My mates would say I'm relatively posh, just the way I talk and where I'm from, whereas a lot of the people I know are really broad Geordies, so even when I went to uni, people thought I was a broad Geordie, but anyone in the northeast thinks that I'm not at all, so...
I was going to say, because I'm from the Darlington, and just when I heard your accent, I heard you're a Newcastle fan, I thought, oh, there's someone from not Newcastle area, but, oh, okay.
No, born and bred in the northeast. I was born in Newcastle, moved to Northumberland when I was about 10, so but
Okay.
never really lived in the heart of Newcastle during my kind of schooling and stuff. So that's probably why a lot of my, I guess a lot of my school days, a lot of my school friends talk similar to me, quite posh. So yeah, that's probably why I seem a little bit out of place in Newcastle games at times.
Stood next to the true Geordie.
Well, yeah, I've had a season ticket for, well, yeah, about 20 years now. I'm 29 in January, so kind of on and off going with my dad as a kid up until kind of now as an adult. But yeah, you know, a lot of really rough Newcastle fans, big beer bellies, shirts off and stuff, and there's me, pretty well dressed, kind of, well, not applauding politely, but in comparison to those guys, it must come across that way.
Go on, Ryan, I'll go back to you.
So we can get back to FM rather than the geography lesson.
Oh, sorry.
Jolly good. Right, your favourite features, we know FM15 had a lot of features that were introduced to the game. What is your favourite feature that was added to FM15?
Oh, well, there's probably quite a few. I think, you know, generally speaking on Twitter and stuff, maybe I'm following the wrong people, but I think it's got kind of a bit of a neutral response, whereas I'm a pretty big fan of the new version. I guess the first one that jumps off the page that was completely new is the manager profiles, where you can be a tracksuit manager or just, I guess, a tactical manager it's referred to. So there's kind of that role-playing element of the game where you select the attributes. A bit like I compared it to when you start an RPG. And you design your character, not quite as in depth as that, where you would pick certain skills and stuff. So I really like that new feature. I haven't got far enough into the game to see how much it really affects things. The furthest I've got to 3 or 4 seasons at the moment. I'd love to see someone who's 15 seasons into the game and seen, you know, what sort of tangible impact it's had on your save. So that's kind of the first thing. But loads and loads of stuff, to be honest with you. You know, really like the scouting system, the fog of war that people would refer to, where you can see, you know, a striker's got between 16 and 20 finishing, stuff like that's really cool as well.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, we can, as you said there, the how the manager profile is. I'm in 2020 on one of my journey saves, and the manager profile seems to change a lot. And if we show the post later on when we discuss your current saves, you'll see how it's changed throughout. But we'll move on with the interview. We know that you've been playing for FM for a very long time. What is your first memory of FM, or as it previously known as Championship Manager?
Well, yeah. Well, as I say, I'm almost 29, so it goes back to kind of the Championship Manager 3, Championship Manager Italia type of days. I can remember when I said earlier before I moved when I was about 10, I had a next door neighbour who was a little bit older than me, and I remember going to his house one day and playing it on a kind of a really old PC, though I think it was Championship Manager 3 back then. And then I'm not sure if you guys will remember, maybe you will, but you could borrow the game off somebody and install it on your machine and never asked for the CD again back then.
Yeah,
so
I love that.
I played that for about 3 months until I think Championship Manager Italia came out, and then bought that myself. And literally, the rest's history from that point in terms of just getting every version. I even vividly remember I was about 13. I got the new version of the game, and it wouldn't play on my PC. Probably it was really slow, and it was practically just me protesting on a daily basis until the PC at home was upgraded. It was just ridiculous how, as though life was unlivable without me being able to have access to a desktop PC in the household that could play Football Manager at a decent speed. That's how crazy it was.
It's dedication to FM, why not?
I remember them days, sitting playing Championship Manager 98 at 5 o'clock in the morning before I went to school.
A story I always tell people when they talk about Football Manager addiction is my mum and dad went on holiday and actually left me at home when I was a teenager. They went away for a couple of weeks, and I must have only been maybe 12, 13, so just kind of on the cusp of being a teenager, and they didn't want me in the house on my own for a fortnight. So my auntie came up to stay with me just to look after me, and every day she would come up to my bedroom several times a day to see what I was doing and kind of inquiring, well, Luke, why aren't you going out? Are you not going to go out and play football, spend some time with your mates, and so on and so on? And literally she could just hear the clicking of a mouse, and it was just me playing Football Manager, or probably still Championship Manager back then on my PC, just not leaving the room for days on end. It was, looking back, pretty pathetic, but that's what it was.
Hey, them were the days.
You're among friends.
Yeah. But we'll move on there. We know that you've created a lot of tactics that I've actually looked at myself. I've not downloaded them because I like to create my own tactics, but I do like looking at your tactics because I think they are amazing. But what managers have influenced you on creating your tactics?
Well, probably over the years, or certainly in this year's version, I guess, just lots and lots of managers and different kind of styles of football that I like. Obviously, the first one I made for FM15 was kind of take on Pep Guardiola's Bayern Munich team. Now, I was really clear in the write-up of that obviously Pep's the main influence. He's the manager and kind of the tactical influence behind the football team, but I was really clear in the article to say, listen, there's a couple of formations here, but when you look at any tactical analysis of his team, they're probably set up in 5, 6, 7 different ways in any stretch of 3 or 4 games. It's such a fluid system, but that really heavily influenced me, I should say, just because it's so different to nearly every other manager going around. I know the manager at Marseille is known for being pretty outside the box, but in terms of the real major European clubs, he just seems to be doing things that other managers just aren't really. I don't want to big it up too much and go over the top, but it does just seem, kind of the next level of where football management's going in terms of, tactical philosophies and just the kind of the emphasis he's putting on players in new roles and just that outside of the box thinking. It's just, I guess, a huge influence on the world of football, not just Football Manager. So it was just such a cool thing to try and replicate, even in a really basic level.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I've seen the Pep Guardiola one, and it has a position that I don't really see a lot of people using, which is a sweeper that plays in I can't remember the role that he uses, but it seems to work from the results that I've seen on the post.
Was it the Roman playmaker?
It's the one behind the two central defenders.
Oh, okay, yeah. So like a sweeper, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a role that a lot of people use, but it's a role that you see Bayern Munich using, and shows Pep Guardiola's willing to go outside the box.
Yeah, that guy's Manuel Neuer.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. Even outside of Football Manager, most of the tactical stuff that I read about these days just is about Bayern and how he's so eager to push fullbacks into different positions. I know they talk about Lahm a lot playing as a defensive midfielder, but almost just removing fullbacks altogether from their natural positions and playing them in new roles. The stuff he's got out of Xabi Alonso since signing him, it's just absolutely fantastic. Really, very enjoyable.
Yeah, but one of your tactics, which I think came out quite recently, is the Diamond Dominator, which you've been using at Liverpool. What was your process in creating that tactic specifically for Liverpool?
He's been using it on Stamford struggle. Can I just add? Absolutely love
Yeah,
that series.
that's true, because with Liverpool, it was just a one, well, so far at least, I know people are eager to see a second season, but currently just a one-season playthrough where won the league first season with Liverpool, only lost one game, I think. I think it was pretty close to going unbeaten the season. But yeah, the thought process behind that was, again, kind of being influenced by what Liverpool had done in that great run or attempt at the title last year under Rodgers. And really I guess the premise of the tactic or the building blocks was that attacking front three of Sturridge, Suarez, and obviously Raheem Sterling. Now, obviously in Football Manager 2015, Suarez is gone just as he has in real life. So it was Sturridge, Balotelli, and Sterling just trying to get the best out of those three. So I kind of started the tactic by trying to think of a way to utilise all three in the best possible ways. So it was the two central strikers, Balotelli and Sturridge, trying to force them to split out wide, and then providing the opportunity for Sterling to burst through the middle as a shadow striker, which, if you've watched the series or even just seen kind of the results in the tactical write-up for the download, you'll see Sturridge and Balotelli got plenty of goals, but so did Sterling. And that was kind of the basis of the start of the tactic, the front three. And then from there, the rest of it, obviously the diamond concept's obviously the midfield. So Sterling's the high point of the diamond, Gerrard's the low point. And then I had interchangeable central midfielders. Emre Can did really well later in the season. Jordan Henderson started it pretty well. Joe Allen did very well as well for me. But the key thing I learned with the tactic was that because it's essentially just two defenders, then wing backs really pushing on, you just have to have two very, very good centre backs. So I signed Balanta at the very start of the save, and he was awesome all season. He was basically the best defender in the league that year, certainly one of them. But
standard for FM, Balanta.
Yeah, but to be fair, Mignolet was in goal, and we had, I think, the best or the joint best defensive record in the league, and so he wasn't hurting us too much. So it's not as though you have to have a superstar keeper, two of the best defenders in the world. I just really stressed in the article, you can't just plug this tactic into any squad, because if you've got two average defenders, you're probably going to get absolutely destroyed, because it leaves a lot of space for those two guys to cope with. Because I had Gerrard as the defensive midfielder set on the support duty, so it's not as though he was doing that much defensive covering really.
I think sorry, I'll just jump in. I was a big fan of the Liverpool series, and I'm following your Stamford one as well, as you know. And I think what I've noticed on that tactic is you're never afraid to put people out of position. Because for 90% of the first season, I think the green bar that's next to the person on the tactics screen, it was basically red.
Who was that? Which player?
Both your fullbacks, I noticed, for most of the season, you were playing maybe fullbacks at the wing back, and they weren't comfortable, but they were still performing.
With Stamford rather than Liverpool, do you mean?
Yeah. Sorry, with Stamford. With Liverpool, it worked. Obviously, it worked perfect. It's working well with Stamford, mainly because of the tank. I'm sure you'll agree, having the tank at the back's a big help.
Yeah, that's true. With Stamford, I think there's not many positions or rules I would do this with, but I think fullbacks to wingbacks is pretty much fine in my estimation, just from kind of testing or kind of limited experience of the new game. I guess we're a few months into the new game now, so most people are relatively experienced. But yeah, it hasn't harmed things too much. An example, obviously it'll bore people if they haven't watched the series, but Leon Dawson, the left wing back, I think he was just naturally a left back, but he had great crossing for that level. It was, off the top of my head, 14 or something, which is ridiculous for Conference North level. So it's obvious you just want to get him as far forward as you can, so you can actually whip in some balls. But yeah, completely agree. They were on kind of red and then kind of yellow and orange and so on, but didn't seem to be that detrimental towards the tactic, really, or the results at least.
Well, I think it's all about, as you said, look at the person's stats, not the position. For example, you've been playing a left winger as a striker, and he started getting your goals, and he looked decent. And I think it was episode 7 and 8. He started to put some good games together.
Yeah, I guess going back to what I was saying about Pep before, I think if you can see players who are going to be able to do a job because of attributes in other roles, you should definitely try it. I know we talked before we started kind of recording the live episode that Cleon from he's got his own website, but he mainly posts on the official forums. Who's really good with tactics. He's wrote a post about, I think it was a defensive midfielder they retrained into a striker. I might be getting that wrong, but essentially it was someone who definitely shouldn't be playing as a striker naturally, and he just saw the attributes and thought, well, actually I can retrain them there. And that's a really extreme example of doing it, but for me, you know, a left winger, retrain them as a striker in my system where they're told to split out wide and provide space for the shadow striker to come from deep, from attacking midfield into a central role, works out perfectly. It's almost a natural transition, you know.
Yeah.
Unless someone's already a striker, the next best thing for them is going to be probably either a left or right winger or an attacking midfielder if you're going to retrain them. So, you know, I didn't have any doubts about that at all. I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar in that position, but because I don't play wingers or even, you know, attacking mid, left or right, you know, he's either going to get a game as a striker or not at all, essentially, and that's why he was bought, really.
Yeah. But go on, Ryan. Sorry, I'm jumping in when I see something I want to comment.
So it's very interesting, but we can build on that and say, what players would you recommend to sign?
See, I guess this is quite a tricky one, just on the basis of the two main saves that I've done. Is obviously Liverpool, where I signed a few players, kind of top end of the market in the sense of who you can attract, and then Stamford, where I guess practically nobody will have heard of some of those players at the very bottom rung of where you could manage players in, I guess, in the English league. But certainly if anyone's managing in the Conference North, Conference Premier type of level, the first person that springs to mind is David Pratt, who's been absolutely awesome for me as a striker. Normally I wouldn't mention him, but there's another guy who produces FM videos called Footy Man TV, or Footy Manager TV, I think it is. And he signed him as well randomly, and he's banging the goals in for him. I got him on a free transfer, so that's probably a one that most people wouldn't recommend. David Pratt, if you've got the face back loaded, he's got a ridiculous hairline for a 27-year-old. He's going really badly bald.
Hey, whoa. Hey,
the guy's a goal machine.
Reminds me of my hairline. Leave him alone.
Oh, don't worry. I've got no hair at all, so I'm comfortable in saying that about him. But probably a few others as well that people will have heard of, I guess, because most people are probably scratching their head at that one, thinking, well, I'm managing, you know, Man United, mate. I want some good players that I can sign. Obviously, we mentioned Belanda before. That's probably kind of your go-to answer for any centre-back signing, almost kind of overdone, that one. But Jose Perez, the Newcastle youngster, obviously he's quite close to my heart because he plays for Newcastle right now. But I did a video on my channel when the game first came out where I just holidayed Football Manager for 5 years to show people how players develop, and I think 5 years into the game he was worth, you know, I'm guessing, but in kind of the 25 to 30 million range. He was one of the better strikers on the game, so he's someone you can probably get relatively cheap. Another striker, I'll probably get the pronunciation of this guy's name wrong because anyone who knows me knows my pronunciation's absolutely ridiculous. He plays for Porto. He's called Vincent Ababaka, something like that. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Abubakar, I know you mean.
Yeah. Now, I tried to sign him for Liverpool, made a few bids, and they were just coming in with ridiculous counter offers, 90 million and stuff. But I always see the computer-based managers signing him for like 6-7 million, and he always does really well. I remember, I think it was Arsenal signed him once on one of my playthroughs, and he always is kind of a 20 to 30 goal a season striker in the Premiership. So if you can actually get a bid accepted for him, we'll call him Vincent. Yeah, look, he looks really, really good, and someone I'm kind of, you know, would actually like to have a shot at signing the next time I start as a big club. But it seems as though I'm fated not to be able to get him because of Porto's negotiations.
Worth looking into. Do you have anyone, Ben, off the top of your head?
Players I recommend?
Yeah,
I've got a couple from my Astra team in Romania. I'm not sure they're cut out for like Liverpool level or anything like that, but if you're maybe a championship team or a Europa League or low Champions League team, they might be good for you. I've got William, who's an AMLC.
Okay. He's still there?
Ben's gone off.
But he's obviously got upset by that person. Oh, Ben, you disappeared for a second.
Oh, sorry. Where did I leave you?
You left us just telling us about someone called William.
That's the one. Yeah, he's my go-to winger / inside forward assist machine.
Okay.
In the goals as well. He's a highly technical player, 2-footed, very consistent. Get you tons of assists. He's bit of a letdown in terms of finishing in the actual terms of attributes, but he still gets a lot of goals. So I'm not really sure why he's rated so low, and I shudder to think what would happen if he actually had higher stats for that, because he got me, I think it was 16 goals from midfield, which is a pretty decent return, I'd say, but with 23 assists. So that's the sort of player you want in your team. His full name is William Douglas de Amorim, but he's a left winger at Astra, AMLC, named William.
Definitely worth going to Astra to check him out. Coming from Romania, he's not going to cost too much as well.
No, he's worth 1.6 million at the start of the second season. I didn't check what he was at the beginning, but not a bad price.
No, that's good. I think for myself, I've screamed the same person for three versions of Football Manager now, which is Landu from Viking in Norway. It'll cost you between 100 and 150k, and he's definitely rotation Premier League or starting Championship, centre back, defensive midfield, right back, or central midfield. Fantastic player. But yeah, go on, back to you, Ryan.
Yeah, I recommend to play myself as we're going on that route. Luke says Statistical Approach about Balanta. I'm at Man United at the moment, and I just wanted to avoid Balanta, and I found Timothy Fosu-Mensah in the under-18s, who looks incredible on the game. He looks like he's going to be the next Balanta. So if anyone's looking for defenders and you can prize him away from United, sign him.
I'm just seeing here, James has come on. Thanks for listening, James. He's just said Dan Maguire. He's a brilliant little striker, so go and check him out. If you've got FM open, lads, just search Dan Maguire.
Excellent.
Should be easy to find. Cheers for listening, James. Anyone who is listening, you'll see at the top corner, your little Google picture. Just click on that. There's 4 squares come up. Click on the 4 squares, and you'll see Q&A. If you click on that, you can join in. Just post your questions. We'll answer them as they come up. But we'll get back to speaking to a Statistical Approach. You'll see his YouTube channel in the background, by the way. If you haven't already, just select and subscribe.
Before we get off tactics a sec, I think we're going to move on soon. But Luke, I want to ask you, what's the reasoning behind having a limited defender in central defence? Because that's one I don't use very often, because I find they just hoof the ball away. Why did you want that in a high pressing game?
Well, yeah, I kind of experimented with it quite a bit, and I talked earlier about having 2 centre-backs who really tend to get exposed. I think with Stamford, you definitely see a lot of just hoofing the ball away, and anyone who listens to the live commentary games will hear my frustrations with that. But definitely with Liverpool, it didn't happen quite as much. I think it was mainly kind of the lesser of two evils, in the sense that it was either having the role set that way or just being too exposed and having to maybe drop a third defender back there or pull both wing backs back into full-back areas. So it's certainly something, if you could have a bit more flexibility within the tactics creator, I would have preferred to have went against, but it was more just to have that kind of additional security and just not leaking goals. I did a few tests with tactics offline before starting with Liverpool. Obviously tried with Hull, did a bit of a playthrough there, didn't go that well. And then it was just the combination of limited defender and ball playing defender seemed to be the perfect complement in terms of didn't hoof the ball too much, but also didn't leak tons and tons of goals. So it was, as I say, I would have preferred not to have had it, but it just seems to be the only way that I could strike that defensive and kind of attacking balance, really.
Fair enough. I wanted to ask you as well, one manager I was surprised that you didn't bring up in your influences was Kevin Keegan. Because when I looked at that lineup and I saw you playing a couple of games with it, I thought, oh, that is the entertainers all over again. Not the same positions exactly, but particularly in central midfield, I thought you had a kind of old-fashioned balance that Keegan had in the middle of the creator and the destroyer. And I know Emre Can isn't exactly Chick Tiote, if you like, but I feel like he would thrive in that sort of role alongside a playmaker like Coutinho. So I can see your influence there. So I was surprised he didn't come up.
Yeah, I can see what you mean by that. I guess when we were talking about managerial influences, someone I didn't mention outside of Keegan, because I would think that my thought process when making tactics and so on and setting up a team would be a bit less Kevin Keegan in terms of we'll score one more goal than the opposition and kind of screw the defensive responsibilities. Probably more along the kind of Alex Ferguson thought process in terms of you want to win, but with a certain style. Where
Yeah.
I guess what would remind me of in terms of that central midfield too would be maybe Keane and Scholes at the best, where Keane, people probably remember him who were younger listening to this as a real defensive mid, but in his prime he was almost box to box. Didn't do that much offensively, but covered a lot of ground, so that's what that role would do. And then I guess the advanced player would obviously be Paul Scholes, where again, people who were younger remember Paul Scholes as kind of a deep lying playmaker, more of a possession midfielder, but really he was kind of the arriving late in the box, scoring goals, for a long, long time, scoring hat-tricks for England and stuff in his pomp. So, yeah, probably more along the Alex Ferguson, a bit of balance where, you need to have some defensive responsibilities rather than Keegan where it was, I'm probably going off on a tangent here, but I remember when we lost the title, and I think we drew 2-2 with Blackburn late in the season, and people were screaming for him to take a striker off, and he just refused to do so, and just kind of adding an additional player into midfield, and it just wasn't his way. And I guess you're a genius if it works and you win the league, and you're a fool if it doesn't, and obviously it didn't work, so yeah.
Oh, cheers. Thanks for that.
Yeah. It's very interesting. We'll move on with another question. You said earlier about how you like the new features that came into FM15. What would you like to see changed or added for the next FM?
Oh, I could talk all day about this one. There's so many things I would like to see in the new game. I often suggest them on the forums and things, but I guess sometimes it feels as though we just kind of shouting in an empty room that you're just not going to get heard about these suggestions. But a few that spring to mind, something I mentioned on Twitter recently is a really basic one that's not a new feature, just an improvement where if you search for a player and you tick the box to hide unrealistic transfers, I think it's changed on this version. Actually, you tick it to only show realistic transfers. The wording's changed slightly. And in lower league management, that just doesn't work that well. I wish there was kind of a slider for it or something. I don't know how it would work, but you often find if you have it unticked so you can see more players, and then you just almost guess at who might be interested. Some of them actually are, and you can have a chat with them and say, well, actually, you'll be a big player at my football club. And then you might have to offer them a lot of wages, but they'll be interested in signing. It almost as though your assistant manager, who's making the decisions on who's realistic and who's not, is a bit too harsh and too kind of black and white rather than shades of grey in their assessment on it, so it can be frustrating. Less so if you're a bigger club, you can untick it and there's only maybe 10 or 15% of the market that kind of unhidden at that stage. But when you're a tiny football club, it can be a bit of a nightmare unticking it, then just having to guess when there's thousands and thousands of players to choose from. So that would just be a really easy improvement that would make life at the lower levels much, much better. A couple others though that I could mention. I talk about this regularly in my playthroughs. Key passes in the game. I don't think anyone's given me a definition of what a key pass is in terms of the stats. Someone tried to tell me it's the pass before the assist, and it definitely isn't because I've watched that lots in live commentaries. So I'd love, I guess, a metric or some sort of analytical stat in there that would show you the pass before the assist, just to see, because Andres Iniesta is probably a real life example of someone who's really heavily involved in the build-up play but might not get that many assists on his own. He's kind of playing it into someone who plays that final killer ball, so that would be another really good one.
Yeah, I suppose the feature that you said about the unrealistic players, it builds on what we said last week about what the staff need in their stats. I think the assistant manager's player knowledge would build on that, and that's probably what Miles would say, because Miles seems to have an answer for everything when someone suggests something. But it's a great feature to have if we're going to add in a slider maybe. We never know.
Yeah, it would be nice to see. I think at Premiership level or Champions League clubs, it doesn't really, it's not that detrimental, but at lower leagues it can be a bit of a minefield trying to find players. And I was just talking to someone on Twitter the other day, and they raised a good point where you could apply a search for certain attributes and only have realistic transfers, and then when you widen it a bit and then just think, well, a player worth £5 million is interested in me, but this player worth £3.5 apparently isn't, and then you try and sign them, and they're willing to talk to you if you just, say something positive in the chat prior to it. So it's, as I say, just maybe a little bit less harsh, or that slider where you could just say, however the wording would work, be more or less restrictive in terms of how many players you can see. But I guess the other suggestion or the other feature I would absolutely love to see, and this is the one I've talked about for quite a while, is in the tactics screen. This would be, in my opinion at least, would be a big game changer, where you'd have two tactics. You'd have a with the ball and without the ball tactic, so you could have two completely separate formations if you wanted. So when I was talking about the Bayern Munich tactic I created, it would just be unbelievably beneficial for me if I could have had, Bayern with the ball, 3 defenders, 3 defensive mids, etc., and then when they lose the ball, go back to a flat back 4 times, which they do quite a lot. And you don't really have that option essentially in Football Manager 2015 or any of the versions really. All you're basing it on is player instructions, team instructions, maybe a little bit of man marking to try and achieve some of that. So it would make it far more complicated, granted, and it would take a lot longer to set up your team, but I think it would be absolutely amazing, and just add an extra dimension in that actually happens in real life. You have a shape with and without the ball.
I think that would work. I think Ben would agree. It would work like well, me and Ben were discussing how we set about set pieces the other day when I made a set piece guide on our website on how I do my set pieces. You could do that, Ben, couldn't you, for the team shape when you lose the ball? You could just have a screen exactly like where you set up your set pieces, and you basically line up how you want your team to adjust if they lose the ball in the opponent's half or in your own half.
Yeah, I mean, you can figure it out when you watch friendlies, but that's just massive trial and error. I'd like to see drills in training where you can kind of test out the formation and see maybe where the balls go. So it's less black and white than having, this is where I want them with the ball, this is where I want them without the ball. Because I like a bit of subtlety. I like being able to just specify what I want and see what each player can do, because I think every player is going to be slightly different. But yeah, I think I'm not sure. It's a difficult one. The worst thing for me in the game at the moment is the player interactions, because I find talking to them doesn't really add anything, but it's such a vital part of actual management. And I think they're kind of a little behind on that. It's too black and white, as I think, going back to what you were saying before.
Yeah, I think
no shades of grey, but I mean that must be so difficult to program into a game. So I don't know if we'll see that anytime soon.
I think we just need to kind of give Football Manager some leeway in the tactics sense. It is extremely detailed, I find. I really enjoy the detail they've added to it. But there has to be a limit. I think we'll all agree. I'm sure you'll agree, Luke. There has to be a limit. Otherwise, without sounding rude to the younger people, but when you get people like who were the age of 10 and 11 when I was really first getting properly into Football Manager, well, Championship Manager at the time, if the tactics were extremely, extremely detailed at that time, I might have just give up on the game.
Yeah, I do agree. I'm not a fan of Football Manager Classic, but I think that's why they've brought that in. So not just for younger fans, but certainly I think even older fans, especially who are used to the Championship Manager 2000, 2001, those type of play through a season really quickly, set your tactics, plug and play. So that fills that gap to an extent. But if I'm honest, if you wanted a prediction from me about where the game's going to go, I think if we had this show in 5 or 10 years' time, I think the tactics will be more and more and more complex. I think that's the way world football's going. I think people want to go online and read articles to the nth degree about tactical analysis, heat maps, everything. I think that's the way the game will have to go, because essentially it runs as a parallel to real life football. Someone mentioned to me recently, and I don't know if this will happen, but it's so true, that Twitter and social media plays a huge, huge role in football, in transfer rumours, in deadline day, and eventually I think Football Manager, the game itself, is going to have even more of that, because otherwise it'll just be left behind, and the landscape of real life football is changing, so Football Manager just has to go with it in every direction, really.
I mean, personally, I always talk to Ryan about this, literally nearly every day, about how I absolutely love the detail in Football Manager. And I tweeted the other day about how I'd watched one of the matches back in pre-season 5 times. I just sat and watched the highlights, making little notes on a pad about where the mistakes were happening. So I'm all for these more and more detailed tactics, but I just fear for the next generation coming up, are they going to embrace it how we have, or will they see this detailed tactics screen and kind of think, oh, I can't learn this, I'm just going to play Call of Duty or FIFA. That's my worry, Ryan.
Yeah, I think someone said something to me about Football Manager about how tactics are going and how coaching is going in real life football, and he said that I play Football Manager and I think I put this tactic in, I've got all these great ideas, I'll put it into Football Manager, it goes well on their game, and then they'll go and try it out in real life. So FM is influencing him to play the game and then influencing to further his coaching education. It's done it for me as well, but not just for football, for cricket as well.
The thing I'd love to see. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, Andrew.
Go on, Ben.
Oh, so the thing I want to see in Football Manager, like my ultimate aim for it, is to feel like a game of football. Because when I've played games like FIFA, I mean, they're great. They replicate football, but they produce moments. Like, so you get to see a bit of end to end, but the whole game is like that. But in real life, games aren't like that at all. Like a football match absolutely ebbs and flows, and there's so much subtlety to it, and the tiniest change can have such a big difference. And I think we get to do that in Football Manager as the manager. So the more and more detailed the simulation becomes, the more and more immersive it becomes as well. And I hope that's where Football Manager wants to go, because that's the game I want to play.
Yeah. And plus, the more detailed it becomes means the more posts we get to do, which means our website gets bigger. Yay! But go on, Ryan, you can move it on.
Yeah, final question that we can put to him. We've got your YouTube channel in the background here. What's your future plans for the channel?
Well, I guess in the short term, obviously Stamford Struggle is going to be a really, really long-running series. I'm in the Conference North, well, just into the Conference Premier now, so probably, well into the new year, that's going to be on-running. I guess in terms of more medium to long-term plans for the channel, what really, I guess, launched me or got me into doing things, publicly blogging about the game, was, for want of a better phrase, I always refer to it as kind of a Moneyball approach, where I wrote a blog, hence the whole Statistical Approach name, looking at Football Manager and looking at attributes for players that were essentially undervalued, a bit like the premise for Moneyball and baseball, and just trying to create player filters or searches for players that would unearth players that maybe everyone wouldn't rate so highly and you could get for cheaper fees and build a squad that way. And I would love to do something like that, video based. I tried it a little bit when I first got into YouTube and it did okay, but I was pretty inexperienced then and the channel was nowhere near as popular. And I would just love to spend maybe 3, 4, 5 years at a club developing a system where I could find some attributes for players and develop player searches that other people could use as well. People could download the filters and just really almost a little bit of a project to see where the value is in the market in Football Manager 2015. Because I think in every version you could probably get a set of attributes for whatever position you want, a centre-back, that you could search certain attributes where they might not be great at tackling or heading, but fantastic in certain other areas, and you could get them much cheaper than, a fantastic defender on paper, and they'd actually perform just as well. That would kind of be the dream. It might not actually be possible, but I think it would be awesome just trying to find that out and just trying to almost beat the system, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, the little videos that I like on your channel, I obviously like the teams that you take over, but I also like the little fixes that you show. Like we've got on the screen here, how to fix the custom skins following the 15.2 update, which was a nightmare for me. Everybody knows me as coming to the technical help, and I just had so many messages. How do I do this? How do I do that? And if you don't know how to use a config file, people are just going to go, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'll just end up going, send the file to me. I'll do it myself. But then at some stage I had no idea what I'm doing, and I actually watched that video and taught me everything. And then it was all on Facebook, and I was able to do it myself. All these little helpful things, which came from you.
No, that's really, really kind, and I think, a big part of my channel will always be that, because I think from the early days of kind of launching the channel and, getting a few subscribers and so on, I realised that because I've played the game so long, I actually know probably more about how to do things than I first realised. Now I obviously appreciate that some people would struggle in certain areas where I would be able to do it, pretty quickly. And people are very, very responsive to it. Obviously, you've been really kind and complimentary there, and just generally in the comments, every now and again you'll get someone saying, well, it doesn't work, I've done everything you said, but 99% of the time
Yeah.
it's just a big thank you for actually, pointing somebody in the right direction. Be that, obviously the custom skin one was quite complicated and pretty annoying for people, but even just how to install, graphics, how to install custom skins, stuff like that, where people just want to play the game, and if you can give them a little bit of an add-on, they're not that interested in learning how to do it. They just want to be kind of handheld through the process. So it's, really, really big for my channel. I try and, have that mix between helpful tutorials, as I would refer to them on the channel, and obviously playthrough series, different things like that. So yeah, it's good to strike that balance.
I think what we need to do as well, Ryan, is we've been explaining to people how to fix it. The custom skin issue. And I actually noticed during the show someone's posted on our group again asking. I think now I've seen this video. I didn't actually know he'd released this video. I've been too busy watching live streams, not the fix videos. I think we should just link that video now. I think it's a good way. It helps them learn from watching the video. So
we can link it on the skins that we've got on the website.
Yeah.
Makes things easier, and it's a little plug for Statistical Approach.
No, that would be awesome. I'd really appreciate that. And I think just people being able to see me do something in the video helps them. It's, when the worst thing for me is when someone asks a really detailed question on Twitter and you just kind of shake your head thinking, there's no way I can answer this in 140 characters.
Yeah.
It's impossible for me to give you a step-by-step guide of how to edit an XML file in 140 characters. And you almost just, you can direct them to the video, obviously, but if you haven't got a video for a question, you kind of just scratching your head thinking, I can't win here.
Yeah, sorry I can't do it. I agree with that. I think, Ryan, we've got 5 questions from people, have we?
We have. What I was thinking of doing is if I could put them in the comment section on the YouTube, and then if Statistical Approach looks at the comments and then answers them there, and then we can just link it and show how he's answered them. I'm sure you'll be willing to do that.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I'll do that straight after we finish here.
I just want to say that James has come on the side. He said this is the best FM show yet. He's really enjoyed it. Statistical Approach is a great addition with great opinions. So that's nice.
That's very nice, isn't it?
James, as many people know, is one of the admins on the Football Manager WizKids, and he's also one of the hosts on our weekly football show. So it's nice for him to come on and listen tonight.
That's very kind.
Where are we going next, Ryan?
I think we can round it. We've got 3 minutes left. We'll go and talk about our current saves that we've got, and we'll go to Ben first because he's been quite quiet on this one. So, how are you doing, Ben, with Astra? I assume you're still going with that save.
I am. Finished second in the league, first season. Won the Romanian League Cup, so kind of hit expectations. But I've kind of hit a crossroads because my board aren't willing to upgrade my youth setup, which is extremely poor, as anybody who saw my youth intake post will know, because it was absolutely dreadful. But if they don't go ahead and develop that, then I'm not sure I can continue at Astra, so I may have to find a new job somewhere else, so we'll see how that goes. But it met expectations, so I'm pretty pleased with that. I just wish I didn't have so many players who let me down so regularly.
Excellent. What about yourself, Paul?
Well, as people know, I had an interesting week due to Football Manager, so I'm currently not active on a save. I will be active from tomorrow morning. I'm going to be starting in the German 4th tier. I will be starting as Magdeburg, if I pronounce that correct. In the 1970s, they won the Cup Winners' Cup, beating AC Milan, and as soon as Germany united together, they basically fell off, and they've become a regional team. So,
Excellent.
I've just created the German 4th tier, which I will be uploading on our website, which you'll see in the background now. So the German 4th tier will be active on the website tomorrow for people to download.
Excellent. And myself, everyone will know on here, apart from Statistical Approach, if he hasn't seen my journeyman save. I'm currently at FC Colf here in Portugal, and lately I've just been offered the New Zealand job, so I can go back to Oceania quite happily and have Australian fans and all my Australian family probably hit me for taking over the New Zealand job, but it's international management and I could not turn it down. I haven't put it on the post yet because I've been outrageously busy with university work, but I'm going to update the post soon and you'll all know what has gone on and how I'm doing with Colvia trying to avoid relegation after just getting promoted.
Fantastic. Well, as you'll see there, we have hit the 45-minute mark. Fantastic, Luke, for coming on. Really enjoyed it. We've run out of time. Like we say, we had a few questions to do, so we're going to put them in the comments below on YouTube, so they can get answers, so people can go on and see the answers. But as always, Ben and Ryan, cheers for coming on the chat.
Pleasure. Good night.
Luke, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really, really enjoyed it. Thanks, for the opportunity to come on. I think what you guys do on the show is brilliant, and more than happy to answer those questions once we wrap up here. So yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, and thank you everybody who takes time out of your day to listen. People who listen back on YouTube, we really appreciate every single view. So thank you so much, and we will see you next week.